Coming up on show 718, why the electric Ford Transit will change the van world. Plus, Norway is back on their EV buying streak. Tesla gets the green light to do a new thing in China. Hybrid Porsche 911 sounds like a nightmare for packaging. And the Netherlands adds some new EV purchase subsidies. Well, those stories and more coming up on the podcast today. Good morning, good afternoon or good evening, wherever you are in the world. Welcome to EV News Daily, the edition for Friday, 6th of March. My name is Martyn Lee, and I go through every EV story so you don't have to. Thank you very much to myev.com for helping me get this show on the air every single day. I know, 7 days a week. Some people call it madness, but I just love to do this. You know what? Before the podcast, I was doing it anyway and sifting through every day's EV news and filtering out the stuff that I wasn't interested in. So really just doing this for you is something that, well, I would do anyway. I just love doing it so much. And thank you to everyone on Patreon for helping me put this show on the air as well. So, the US-built electric Ford Transit's going to change the van world, is the claim that's made today. The best-selling commercial van in the world is now going electric. And that could change the entire fleet market, says Jalopnik. Well, Ford already takes a huge cut of that market, selling almost 250,000 Transits in 2019. Whilst the full details of the new Transit EV, like range, power and cost, haven't been unveiled, Ford says this will all come out very soon, and maybe even at the New York Auto Show. Well, you know, it's interesting. I was talking to Phil recently, Phil Roberts, I should say, from Electric Future, one of the premium partners of this podcast. You can check out what they do, those big solar installs at ef.energy. I was talking to Phil over Twitter, actually, because he was saying, look, we need a work van. It needs to be electric, and have I missed anything obvious here? Just picking my brains. I said, Phil, you've covered off all the obvious choices. There is nothing really at the moment that, in their case at least, the miles they need to do, that works. And so I wonder if Ford can get 200 miles out of this all-electric Ford Transit, whether it could be something that lots of companies, delivery companies, would actually find really useful. And the van world is an interesting thing. I had made the presumption, maybe wrongly, that in the US it was all pickups, and in the UK it was all vans. We just don't have pickups here. I mean, pickups physically exist, but nobody really wants to buy one. And vans, we all just, you know, if you've got a job to do, you get a van, right? And in the US, I thought it was pickups. But so I've been reading up on this, and it turns out that the van market in the US is actually going under a bit of a change, bit of a growth spurt at the moment as well. So vans are a thing in the US. Well, Jim Farley, the COO of Ford, says this: commercial vehicles are a critical component to our big bet on electrification. As leaders in this space, we are accelerating our plans to create solutions that help businesses run better, starting with our all-electric Transit and the F-150. This Ford Transit isn't just about creating an electric drivetrain, it's about designing and developing a digital product that propels fleets forward. Ooh, get you, Mr. Connected. Well, Ask Technica points out that just like the full-size pickups beloved by US tradesmen and tradeswomen, this will come in a variety of sizes, 3 different body lengths, 3 different roof heights, and different cabin and body options. Slash Gear website says there'll be a cargo van version, a cutaway, a chassis cab, and 3 different roof heights, according to Ford. Well, that should help the full electric Ford Transit be more than a one-off novelty in the overall lineup. It'll also mark a big step forward for connectivity. Ford promises the all-electric Transit will use Ford telematics and an embedded 4G LTE modem to support in-vehicle hotspot use for up to 10 Wi-Fi devices. So if you are driving all day and you have a phone that needs to be maybe one phone on your GPS system, one phone on your nav system, one phone maybe for your work has maybe some custom software that sits on an app or something for tracking or deliveries. Well, that can all connect to the internet through the Ford Transit because it can operate as a modem. It'll allow for precise fleet management. With the right software, companies can track the new Ford Transit via GPS and add geofencing rules and remotely monitor the vehicle diagnostics to know exactly when the drivers are taking their toilet breaks and how long they're eating their sandwiches for. And as Digital Trends points out, the electric Ford Transit will go on sale in the United States for the 2022 model year. I know it sounds a long way off, but that does mean it arrives in showrooms next year. towards the end of 2021. Okay, so it's still 18 months away. And pricing still hasn't been announced yet. And for context, the gas-burning Transit carries a base price of $34,500. Production of the all-electric Ford Transit will take place in the United States. There is a Ford Transit plug-in hybrid, at least here anyway in GB. But an all-electric one, if they can get a nice big battery underneath the floor, well, vans are naturally bigger and naturally have a flat floor anyway for loading all of your supplies or goods. It makes sense to put a big battery underneath there as well. Brilliant news, Ford. That is great news. And of course, they've got some more news to talk about with the F-150 in there as well, which sells more copies of an F-150 than, well, just about everything. Let's talk about Norway. Back on an EV streak last month. 5,145 zero-emission cars were registered in Norway in February. In last month, the share of pure electric cars, of new cars sold, passenger car registrations, was 50%. 49.7. Shall we say 50? We're all friends here. In total, including hybrids and plug-in hybrids, 80% of new cars were EVs. The sales in Norway also count electric and hybrid drives as well to get to that number. What was the number one? That was the Audi e-tron, says Electrive, compared to the same month last year. This is an increase in all-electric registrations by 14%. Norway still recorded declines in the last 3 months of 2019, but now things are looking up again in the new year. Individual models, so Audi e-tron Quattro recorded the highest number of new registrations across all drive types. 1,171 e-trons hit the road in February alone. So if you haven't seen an e-tron on the road yet, and you wondered where they all are, they're all in Norway. Well, 1,171 of them last month were registered in Norway. E-tron's a lovely car, by the way. I followed one home today, feeling quite inferior in our Renault Zoe. This was a dirty e-tron. Someone near me drives an e-tron 55, and they want to throw a bucket of water over it. Seriously, this was... Come on, it was a new one as well, looking at the number plate. And you think, oh man, you've just spent, £70,000 on an EV? Hose it down, my friend. If you look at the second most selling car in Norway, it was the VW e-Golf with 755 registrations, and the Nissan Leaf was in third place with 484. So, let's go to China and Tesla, and they've received the green light to start producing a new version of the Model 3. Model 3, long-range, rear-wheel drive. The car that if I could get it, if I could afford it, but if they sold it, well, that's the one that I have. I don't need an all-wheel drive car. Don't need a performance car, certainly, but I do need range. I think range is king in every situation. And actually, that's the best combination for me. But, well, that's the one that I can't buy. Chances you can't buy, but in China, they're going to start making it. Says Fred at Electrek when announcing the production of the Model 3 in China. Elon said that the automaker would only produce the lower-end versions of the car in China and that the high-end versions would be made in California. Well, as production started at the plant this year, Tesla was only producing the Model 3 Standard Range Plus rear-wheel drive. However, Electrek reported last month on Tesla seeking to make the Model 3 long-range rear-wheel drive, the version that was discontinued in the US, at the Gigafactory in Shanghai. Now we've learned they've got approval from the Ministry of Industry and Information Technology to sell this new version, and the news coming via Reuters as well. Staying with Tesla, and they're advertising for jobs. Advertising for solar and energy storage project managers in China as they move to expand its energy business in the country, says Autoblog. Well, the two job posts on Tesla's human resources page on WeChat mark the first time that they've looked to hire roles in China for this particular skill set. One post says Tesla's looking for project managers to design and execute solar projects for commercial and residential customers, and a second posting seeks managers to develop photovoltaic energy storage projects. The roles are advertised at the Gigafactory in Shanghai, or Giga Shanghai as I'm meant to be calling it these days. Here is someone next on the podcast who, I dare say, look, we can all be friends. I'd be his friend, but I disagree with him so vehemently. And I think you might as well. Electric cars are only bought by green addicts and aren't attractive enough to regular buyers, according to the chairman of France's largest car maker. This is according to the website driven.co.nz. Carlos Tavares, head of the PSA group, so he is responsible for every Peugeot that's made and every Citroën and DS. He says electric vehicles lack mainstream appeal. Speaking to reporters from a number of outlets, including Reuters, following the cancelled Geneva Motor Show, Tavares said manufacturers must work on making EVs affordable. Well, that I agree with, and I imagine you would agree with that as well. Yes, EVs can be expensive. We do need to work on making them affordable. His views clash, though, on the actual reason why people buy them. That EVs are bought by green addicts. Look, using a sample size of the thousands of people that listen to this podcast, the ones that respond to Question of the Week, only 2 weeks ago on Question of the Week, I said, on a scale of 1 to 10, where did the environment rate on you buying an EV, or will it rate if you haven't bought one yet? And so many people said the same as me, like, oh, I bought an EV because it's more fun, it's interesting, I like technology, I like gadgets, I want to be driving for less money than a fossil car, and also I'm aware of the environmental benefits. But I didn't go out and buy our first EV, the first Renault Zoe that we bought. I didn't go out shopping trying to save the planet. I went out and bought it because it's a great car, and EVs are just better. So, again, sample size of small, right? You know, the audience of this podcast. But the overwhelming response was, no, I didn't buy it for environmental reasons. I wouldn't say that the people listening to this show are green addicts, Mr. Tavares. Well, look, Carlos, you and I disagree on this matter, and maybe you want to get some focus groups together, or maybe you want to get some people advising your senior managers, the people that are writing reports for you, and maybe the people that are reporting upwards in PSA, because, you know, he can't do all the work himself. He's obviously got a team of senior VPs and things that are obviously compiling reports and to the board and presenting, so he's the main man. He wants to be fully up to speed. I would say that those people are doing you a disservice, sir, and that you want to get and talking to some real people in the real world of EVs. So his views also clash with the likes of Mercedes-Benz and Volkswagen. They're investing heavily in electric technology, and they're not doing it simply for green addicts. Ola Källenius is Daimler's chair and boss of Mercedes-Benz cars. He says his company will double production of plug-in hybrid vehicles this year and push to expand their EV range, or badged EQ cars. I'm loving the direction of Mercedes at the moment. And Tavares, though, isn't alone. The BMW board member Klaus Froelich told reporters last summer the shift to electrification is overhyped. That's the word he used. Oh man, even if you think it, don't say it, my friend. A government push for EVs outstripped the consumer demand. At the time, he was disagreeing with governments pushing forward to zero emissions when he didn't think that the real people actually wanted that. Well, again, respectfully disagree. Let's talk Porsche, and a car that many people thought would never become an EV, let alone even electrify. The Porsche 911 sounds like a packaging nightmare, though. Still developing a hybrid 911, and it's sounding like a lot of hard work. They want to keep the same body style as the current car. The rear seats, the engine location up the... it's not the front, is it? The engine location where it is at the back, and I do know about cars a little bit. Not too much. And all of that proves difficult when you have to fit batteries and motors in somewhere. Oh, look, they've got some room up the front. They could stick it there. Well, if you do, I'm not sure there's going to be much room for luggage. According to Jalopnik, Auto Express also interviewed Michael Steiner. Now, Michael Steiner sits on the board for Porsche, and he said that the platform is hybrid ready. They even have prototypes of the 911 on the roads. He said, I drive it myself. It's fun to drive. Well, Dr. Michael Steiner, Porsche's board member for R&D, said one thing that should be decided on is whether it's more performance-oriented and a hybrid, or a range-oriented plug-in hybrid. This is one of the main decisions we have to take at Porsche, deciding which direction such a variant of the 911 would take. It also, once again, has to do with weight. The more range that you want, the more weight that you have to add. And if you're only looking for performance, you can have a really, really small battery and not have a plug socket. It boosts the car and regens under braking, I mean, you're always travelling on petrol in that case, but you can get away with a smaller battery if you want to go down the kind of soft, mild hybrid route that Toyota has taken. I'll pop a link to those stories in the show notes if you'd like to find out more. And if you're listening to this podcast on Apple Podcasts, and I can see from my download stats, it is the most used way of getting this show. I'd love you to leave a little review on Apple Podcasts, either a star rating if you're busy, and if you can write a few words, I mean, that's always really amazing. Thank you so much for those people that have done recently, and it really helps me grow the show. Let's talk about a company that I've been following for a long time. Had their ups and downs. SolarEdge have launched a smart EV charger. Following the launch of the first-of-a-kind award-winning EV charging solar inverter, SolarEdge is now expanding their EV charging with the launch of their smart EV charger. It's for the North American market. It increases flexibility installation, level 2 charger. It'll go up to 9.6 kilowatts. That's a 40 amp, 240 volt circuit it'll be on, supporting installation either as a standalone unit or it'll couple with, of course, SolarEdge make PV systems. It'll couple with your solar panels. If you have some PV on the roof, when connected to a SolarEdge inverter with HD Wave technology, their new smart EV charger will enable EV charging so that excess solar is going to your car rather than out to the grid in order to reduce charging costs and your carbon footprint. Well, the combined solution will offer charging solely from solar, and in the future, they're going to offer support for 7 times faster charging by simultaneously pulling from the grid and solar in what they call solar boost mode. In fact, I'm probably 3 weeks away now from getting my version 2 Zappi charger. The Zappi in, I'm going to say this country, but I know they ship all over the world, is a product which does a very similar thing, actually. And we don't have solar power, but when we do get PV on the roof, and that's a project for this year, and we're putting money into the savings account for it, and so when we do that, it's a similar... It's almost exactly the same in that it's smart, it's intelligent, it's programmed to make sure that you use your energy the best way. You can leave your car plugged in and tell it, look, any excess solar. They've also got a product that heats your hot water as well with excess solar, but, put it into the car if we've got some excess. And that's just such a brilliant idea. So anyway, we're future-proofing ourselves with that. I think about 3 weeks. I think our electrician emailed earlier this week. I think it's sort of 3-4 weeks where they've really caught up with the sort of backlog they were working through because it's such a popular product. And of course, I will fully review it on the podcast. And I've got to do some more video for this show as well. So we will definitely have a look at that. And my first few weeks of having a play with it as well, I will report back to you how I go with that. Good news in the Netherlands. Final story of the podcast today. The Dutch government has now confirmed the rumours. We've talked about these a couple of weeks ago on the show. The purchase subsidies for privately owned used electric cars. From July, they've got some further details on it now. Hybrid cars and vehicles above a list price of €45,000 won't be considered. So, if you got a used electric car with your eye on, then it will be considered. According to Electrive, those wanting to purchase a used EV in the Netherlands will be eligible for a subsidy of €4,000 off the purchase price of the new electric cars on the market. And they've got to have a minimum range of 120 kilometres, but that's fine. And the used ones is €2,000, just for clarification there in case I wasn't clear on that. So €4,000 off a new car, €2,000 off a used electric car. List price for the new one's got to be between €12,000 and €45,000. Good news. Good news. Well done, Netherlands. This is good news. Incentivising people to buy used EVs. Rather than new ones. I mean, some of the cleanest ways of motoring is to make sure that we are making the most of the car stock that is out there on the roads at the moment. Let's talk about question of the week. If I wave a magic wand and install a charger for you anywhere, what would it be? What kind of charger? Fast or slow? Where would it be and why? Let me know your reasons and your thinking. And it's just good to know what your use case is for your EV, or if when you buy a car, if you haven't got one yet, but when you buy an EV, where would you like a charger installed? Email me hello@evnewsdaily.com or leave a comment on the YouTube show. Thank you to 41 patrons of the show now. You are a very generous bunch, and you make this show happen. So thank you. Patreon, if you want to have a look at it, by no means do you have to. I'll do the show anyway, but if you're interested, it's Patreon, patreon.com/EV News Daily. Premium partners of the show, Phil Roberts of Electric Future, Brad Crosby, Avid Technology, and Brightsmith for Clean Tech Talents. 717 previous shows sits in the archive on the servers waiting for you to download. If there's an old show that tickles your fancy, have a look at the blog, evnewsdaily.com. And in the meantime, have a wonderful day. Catch you tomorrow. And remember, there is no such thing as a self-charging hybrid.